After the age of 60, the body begins to undergo many changes, and the brain is no exception. Many elderly people often find themselves becoming forgetful, forgetting things, even calling their children and grandchildren by the wrong name or not remembering what they intended to do when entering a room. At first glance, these may seem like normal old age phenomena, but if this condition occurs frequently and becomes increasingly severe, it is very likely that the brain is beginning to show obvious signs of aging. Brain aging not only affects memory, but also causes many serious consequences, such as impaired thinking, emotional disorders, loss of concentration, and cognitive decline. If not detected and controlled early, these signs can lead to neurological diseases, such as dementia, Alzheimer's, or even loss of self-care ability. It is worth noting that the aging process of the brain often occurs silently and does not manifest clearly in the early stages. Therefore, understanding and recognizing early warning signs is extremely important, not only helping the elderly themselves to be more proactive in protecting their health, but also helping their children and grandchildren to have timely support measures. In this video, we will learn about 6 signs that the brain is seriously aging, thereby having a more accurate view of brain health in the elderly and effective prevention methods. 1. Often forgetting newly learned or newly heard information. A clear warning about brain aging. One of the earliest and most common signs of brain aging is often forgetting newly learned or newly heard information. That is, things that have just been received but cannot be remembered for a long time. A typical example is that you have just met an acquaintance and introduced yourself, but after a few minutes you have forgotten what that person's name is. Or you have just heard your grandchild talk about school, but when your daughter asks again, you cannot remember how that conversation went. These symptoms are small, but if they occur frequently, they can be a sign that the brain is losing its short-term memory function, one of the first effects of neurological aging. Why is forgetting new information a worrying sign? New information, such as a person's name, address, phone number, or the content of a recent conversation, is processed in the hippocampus, the central area of the brain that records and coordinates short-term memory. As we age, nerve cells in this area can deteriorate, lose connection, or function less effectively. This disrupts the ability to receive and store new information, leading to the phenomenon of forgetting as soon as you hear it. Some older people often justify that you're old, so you have to forget, but that is not always normal. There's a clear difference between age-related memory loss and pathological memory loss, such as dementia. Normal elderly people can still forget some small details, but remember them after a while. Meanwhile, people with signs of severe brain aging or approaching Alzheimer's often cannot recall new information even when prompted. Affects daily life quality. Forgetting information that has just been learned or heard is not just a minor inconvenience. It also seriously affects the quality of daily life. Older people can forget to take medication on time even though they have just been told. Forget the content of conversations, making relatives feel that you do not care. Be confused when participating in activities that require continuous coordination of information, shopping, cooking, babysitting, etc. Increase the risk of accidents if you forget to turn off the stove, turn off the gas, or unplug the power. This situation, if prolonged, makes older people become reluctant to communicate, lose confidence, and gradually withdraw into their own world, leading to stress, depression, and accelerating the process of brain degeneration. How to improve forgetfulness? It is important to detect it early and intervene promptly. Here are some ways to help improve short-term memory for the elderly. Exercise regularly. Gentle exercise such as walking and yoga helps increase blood circulation to the brain, improving memory. Exercise the brain. Reading books, solving crossword puzzles, learning a new skill, drawing, musical instrument, can help create new neural connections. A reasonable diet. Supplementing omega-3, vitamin B12, nuts, green vegetables, helps protect nerve cells. Get enough sleep. Deep sleep helps consolidate short-term memory into long-term memory. Avoid prolonged stress. Stress causes the hippocampus, the central memory area, to shrink. Relax, meditate, and breathe deeply. In addition, if forgetfulness becomes severe or appears with symptoms such as time confusion, not recognizing relatives, irritability, etc., The elderly should see a neurologist for timely diagnosis and treatment. 2. Difficulty with planning, calculating, or solving simple problems. When you were young or middle-aged, planning a family party, remembering your monthly expenses, or simply cooking a multi-step meal usually didn't pose much of a problem. However, if you reach a certain stage and start to feel confused about these seemingly simple tasks, it could be a clear sign that your brain is entering a serious aging stage. Older people tend to have a reduced ability to concentrate and organize information, making sequential or planned activities more difficult. For example, when tasked with preparing a multi-course meal, an older person may forget the first step, do it in the wrong order, or even leave out a previously planned dish. Things like calculating grocery costs, dividing medication into doses, or even calculating change when shopping can start to become challenging. One obvious sign is a decline in the ability to process simple numbers. The person may find it difficult to calculate the total monthly expenses, or repeat the process over and over again without getting it right. They may get confused about the steps in the process of paying utility bills, or need constant help from their children just to rearrange their weekly schedule. This condition not only affects the quality of life of the elderly, but also causes dependence and reduced autonomy. When a person cannot organize their daily work, they are prone to feeling frustrated, lose confidence in themselves, and become increasingly withdrawn from the world around them. This mentality can lead to more serious problems, such as depression, anxiety, and accelerate the process of neurodegeneration. However, the good news is that this is not the end. According to neurologists, the decline in planning and problem-solving abilities can be controlled and slowed down if detected early and intervened properly. Memory training exercises, logic games, or simply assigning the elderly to perform tasks that are appropriate to their abilities, such as organizing the closet, doing simple calculations, cooking a meal with only 1 to 2 dishes, can all help maintain brain flexibility. In addition, nutrition plays a very important role. Foods rich in omega-3, vitamin B, antioxidants such as blueberries, salmon, nuts, and green vegetables can help support cognitive function. At the same time, maintaining regular exercise habits such as walking, tai chi, yoga also helps increase blood flow to the brain, reducing the risk of early brain atrophy. It is extremely important to actively monitor signs of changes in your behavior and ability to process information. If older adults often struggle with simple tasks or constantly ask others to help them plan and calculate, don't ignore it and go see a neurologist to have their cognitive function tested. Sometimes the cause is not just natural aging, but can be an early sign of diseases such as dementia or Alzheimer's, diseases that need to be intervened as soon as possible to retain important brain functions. In short, difficulty in planning, calculating, or handling simple situations is not just a normal thing of old age, as many people think. This can be a warning bell that the brain is seriously declining in function. Early detection, combined with a scientific lifestyle and medical support, can slow down this process, helping the elderly maintain a better quality of life, be more independent and more confident in daily life. 3. Often confused about time, place, or people. Warning signs of brain function decline. In old age, sometimes forgetting what day it is, confusing about places, or calling children and grandchildren by the wrong name can make the elderly feel worried. In many cases, this is not only a sign of age, but also a warning sign of serious decline in brain function, an early sign of neurological aging. Common symptoms. Elderly people can start with temporary disorientation. They do not remember what day it is, often ask for the time, or confuse day and night. In more serious cases, they can even get lost in place, not remembering why they are in a certain place, or thinking they are in their old house, when they have actually moved away for a long time. Another easily recognizable sign is calling relatives and even biological children and grandchildren by the wrong name. These mistakes not only make the patient confused and lose confidence, but also make those around them worry about their mental health. Why does this happen? As the brain ages, it loses its ability to remember, process information, and form connections. The hippocampus, which is primarily responsible for memory retention, is one of the earliest areas affected in dementias, such as Alzheimer's. When this area is damaged, The ability to locate time and space and recognize familiar people will be severely impaired. In addition, lack of sleep, stress, poor diet, or abuse of sedatives are also factors that contribute to worsening confusion in the elderly. What to do when detecting this sign? Monitor the frequency. If confusion only occurs occasionally, and the elderly can recover after a short period of time, it may just be a sign of normal aging. However, if it occurs frequently, becomes increasingly severe, and affects daily activities, it is necessary to have a medical examination early. Regular checkups, checking brain function, especially through cognitive and memory tests, can help detect dementia early. Brain training. Participating in activities such as playing chess, solving crossword puzzles, reading books, or using memory training apps can help maintain brain flexibility. Proper nutrition. Supplementing foods rich in omega-3, vitamin B, and antioxidants will help slow down the aging process of the nervous system. Don't be subjective when an elderly relative shows signs of confusion about time, place, or acquaintances. This could be an early sign of a more serious problem. Early detection, proper intervention, and scientific care will be the key to helping the elderly live happily, live healthily, and maintain a sharp mind. If you find the elderly in the family has long-term emotional changes that persist or have depression, abnormal anxiety, should take them to see a neurologist or psychiatric psychology for brain function and early intervention. By timely treatment at the early stages can help slow the aging process of the brain, improve the quality of life, and maintain the spiritual connection with the family and society. 6. One of the serious signs of brain aging is that when the elderly began to lose their ability to judge danger or make abnormal wrong decisions. This not only affects personal health, but also can lead to dangerous situations for both yourself and the people around. The most common example is that the elderly intentionally go to the streets at rush hour, cross the crowded roads without careful observation, or walking without using sticks or supportive means, while they were very careful. Some other cases include unnecessary expensive purchases via phones or social networks, transferring money to strangers, or being cheated by fraudulent tricks, which before that they were completely able to analyze and identify risks. The ability to make decisions depends on the coordination of many brain regions, especially the frontal lobe, the place to control the operating function, behavior control, and risk assessment. When the brain begins to aging, this area may impair function, making it difficult for patients to analyze the situation, evaluate the consequences, or choose the appropriate behavior for the situation. Some specific manifestations include: do not realize the danger of cooking, such as forgetting the gas stove or forgetting to turn off the electric stove after cooking. Make unusual financial decisions, such as buying expensive life insurance at the age of 80 or blindly investing in the seduction. Do not know how to react when having problems such as fire, falling, or power outages, standing still or panic instead of appropriate handling. The loss of the ability to realize the abnormalities in other people's behavior, such as absolute stranger trust. It is worth mentioning that many elderly people do not realize this change of themselves, and only when relatives discover or have a consequence of the prompt processing. Therefore, monitoring and evaluating the ability to make decisions of the elderly in everyday life is extremely important. If you notice this expression, don't be subjective. Take them to a neurological or mental specialist to check the level of brain aging and build appropriate care plans. In addition, the use of supportive measures, such as prompt schedule, financial supervisor, or limiting contact with dangerous situations also needs to be implemented early. No one can avoid the law of time, but we can actively slow down the aging process of brain by listening to our body more. The manifestations such as forgetting, confusion, abnormal emotions, loss of orientation, or difficulty do not be overlooked. It may be an early warning bell for dangerous neurological disorders later. Remember, brain health should also be cared for, such as cardiovascular or osteoarthritis. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle, adequate eating, getting enough sleep, regular exercise, periodic health check, and especially keeping the brain always mobilized through thinking activities, the key to preserving a lucid memory and old age life. If you or your loved ones are showing signs of memory or awareness, Do not hesitate to seek advice from a neurologist. Early detection, early intervention is the best way to protect the brain and preserve alertness and lucidity for the years before.